President of the Republic of Azerbaijan Ilham Aliyev and First Lady Mehriban Aliyeva participated in the opening ceremony of a newly constructed residential complex in the city of Jabrayil, where they handed over keys to the new homes to the residents. Sadig Sadigov, chairman of the board of the State Housing Development Agency, briefed the President and the First Lady on the work completed in the residential complex. The total area of the Jabrayil residential complex is 7.9 hectares. The complex comprises 33 residential buildings, including 7 5-story buildings and 26 4-story buildings, with a total of 712 apartments. These include 8 one-room, 136 two-room, 8 two-room studio-type, 392 three-room, and 168 four-room apartments. The construction of the 6-quarter complex has been completed to high standards. In addition to the residential buildings, the area features social facilities, both underground and above-ground parking space, recreational areas, and children's playgrounds for entertainment and sports. The head of state delivered a speech at the event.
Bugün Jabrayil şehrinin
Today marks the 4th anniversary of the liberation of the city of Jabrayil. On this occasion, I extend my heartfelt congratulations to you, all the people of Jabrayil, and the entire Azerbaijani nation. We are celebrating this significant event today, 4 years later, in Jabrayil. As you may know, October 4th was designated as Jabrayil City Day by my order. I am confident that we will continue to observe this wonderful day annually. The liberation of Jabrayil holds great significance, as it was the first city freed from occupation during the Second Karabakh War. By that time, the war had been ongoing for a week, with nearly 20 villages, including those in the Jabrayil district, already liberated. However, Jabrayil was the first city to be reclaimed, and the Jabrayil operation was of special importance. Our army displayed immense professionalism and heroism, driving the occupiers out of Jabrayil. May Allah bless all our martyrs. The Azerbaijani armed forces demonstrated true courage, dedication, and valor during the patriotic war, and we will forever be proud of our martyrs. Of course, the liberation of Jabrayil not only positively impacted the course of the war, but also boosted the morale of both our army and our nation. We all believed that this victory would ultimately lead to our triumph, and with the liberation of each settlement and city, that belief only grew stronger. A few days after Jabrayil, the successful Hadrat operation was conducted, showcasing great professionalism. The enemy had heavily fortified positions in the area, particularly on all high grounds, including Jabrayil. To liberate the city, our brave soldiers had to break through several defense lines, and they succeeded. Following Hadrut, the Fuzuli operation was successfully completed on October 17th, opening the way to Shusha, Zangilan, and Gabardli. From that point, the victorious march of our army advanced even more rapidly. As I mentioned earlier, we liberated key areas, including the cities and districts of Jabrayil, Hadrut, Fuzuli, Zangilan, Gabardli, and several villages in the Lachin district. Finally, on November 8th, we liberated the city of Shusha. In total, over 300 cities and villages were liberated on the battlefield. Thus, Armenia was forced to sign the Capitulation Act on November 10th. Thus, the history of the Second Karabakh War ended with our victory. Today, the entire Azerbaijani people live with a deep sense of gratitude toward our heroic children. And the younger generation, raised in the spirit of patriotism, was able to reclaim the lands that we once lost for the people and state. Shortly after the liberation of Jabrayil, all relevant orders for the development of the city were issued. First, demining operations had to be carried out, as the regions near the former line of contact were heavily mined. Infrastructure projects began immediately, and today, anyone visiting Jabrayil can see that the old road, once used during Soviet times, has been rebuilt, and I remember this road well. Since the victory, I have traveled this road many times to visit these regions. A new four-lane highway is successfully under construction and will extend to Zangilan, Gubardli, and eventually Lachin. The implementation of other infrastructure projects is on track successfully and swiftly, not only in Jabrayil, but throughout the liberated regions. While here yesterday, we celebrated the opening of a new school, and you know that starting next week, children will attend classes. This new neighborhood also includes plans for a hospital and a temporary medical facility. The beautiful houses being built here not only demonstrate the strength of our state, but also show that the Azerbaijani government is doing everything in its power to ensure that the living conditions of former IDPs meet appropriate standards. In the first neighborhood, 33 multi-apartment buildings have been constructed, with a total of 712 apartments being built here. Some of these apartments have already been handed over, and others are scheduled to be commissioned in the coming months. Thus, the first new residential area in the city of Jabrayil is being inaugurated. I can say that the ongoing work in the liberated territories is of a special nature, unprecedented in its scale. No other country that has experienced from occupation or war has managed to carry out rebuilding works with such speed and quality, because this work is being done according to comprehensive and precise plans. Master plans for every city have been approved. All necessary infrastructure is being considered for every village. Yesterday, I reviewed the reconstruction of Horovlu village, which, like the city of Jabrayil, was liberated on the same day. In a few months, likely in the first half of next year, residents will return to Horovlu. However, our work doesn't stop there. We are also addressing employment for those returning. Yesterday alone, I laid the foundation stones for 5 new enterprises in the Jabrayil district. Previously, about 10 enterprises had their foundations laid in the Araz Valley Industrial Zone, one of which is already operational. The enterprises I laid the foundation for yesterday will employ over 1,000 people. I advised the entrepreneurs who founded these enterprises to ensure that the majority of the workforce consists of former IDPs who have returned or will return to Jabrayil. Thus, we are providing not only housing and infrastructure, water, gas, electricity, roads, schools, and hospitals, but also employment opportunities. The operations of the enterprises I laid the foundation for yesterday are planned to begin next year. Perhaps some of the enterprises will have a broader scope and will come to fruition in a year and a half. In other words, all this work once again shows that the true owners of this land have returned. The treacherous enemy has only destroyed these territories for 30 years. Our meeting is also among these ruins. When I first came to Jabrayil after our historic victory, I was horrified. We knew that the Armenians had shown their barbarism everywhere on our lands. We knew that the vast majority of our territories were in ruins. But it was unimaginable to think that such savagery and inhumane actions could exist. In Jabrayil, there were practically only 2 buildings left. Armenian soldiers had occupied those. The rest of the city looks like this. And those Western states that do not want to see this and still support Armenia today, justifying their policies of aggression, should open their eyes wide and look. They see, but pretend not to see. They accuse us, and sanctions are imposed against us. Not a single sanction has been imposed on Armenia in 30 years. Armenia violated all norms and principles of international law, occupied about 20% of our lands, carried out ethnic cleansing, committed the Khojaly genocide, and left all our cities and villages in ruins. Has any official representative of any Western country ever reprimanded them? No. They even ignored the resolutions of the UN Security Council, the world's #1 organization. However, the resolutions of the Security Council must be implemented. In 1993, 4 resolutions were adopted. Did anyone say to them until 2020, "You've occupied those lands, you must leave"? No. What the Minsk group engaged in was only stalling these matters, justifying the Armenian occupation to some extent, and provoking us to accept humiliating peace. The activities of the Minsk group consisted of this. When we raised our rightful voices on all international platforms, we were told that our words were too sharp. This sharp rhetoric does not bring peace closer, it distances it. You must find a common language with Armenia. Make peace. You have lost the war. Accept it. We have heard all of this, both in official statements and behind closed doors during contacts. Our position, however, was unequivocal, resolute, and unchanged. Not a single inch of land can remain under occupation. If the issue cannot be resolved peacefully, we will resolve it through war. My words are in all archives. What did they say in response to this? There is no military solution to this conflict. In other words, Western states used all kinds of dirty tactics to reconcile us with defeat so that we would not liberate our lands from occupation. France and similar Western states did everything they could to perpetuate this occupation. Look at the degree of this injustice. The countries that wanted to gift our lands to Armenia were allegedly engaged in resolving this conflict. But their true intention was to keep us under constant pressure and gift these lands to Armenia. What did their proposals consist of? They consisted of granting independence to the former Nagorno-Karabakh Autonomous Oblast. After all, there must be a degree of this hypocrisy and duplicity, right? Look at the Russia-Ukraine war today. What do Western states, France, America, and others say? They say that Ukraine's territorial integrity must be restored, and Ukraine must use weapons. They provide all kinds of weapons to Ukraine. Well, why was the attitude different towards our occupied lands? After all, our territorial integrity was also violated. 1 million people became homeless. Who was helping us? While 1 million people were living in wagons, dormitories, kindergartens, and tents. Why was such duplicity displayed? We demand answers to these questions. But where do we see the answer? Again, in the anti-Azerbaijani actions. This morning, I was informed that 60 pro-Armenian congressmen from the US Congress have appealed to the American government to impose new sanctions on Azerbaijan. This morning, I glanced through that appeal. It is a dirty appeal that cannot influence our will. However, what does this show? It shows that the policy of hostility towards us does not stop. When I looked at that appeal, I guessed that both its author and addressee were the same, because its addressee is the US Secretary of State. But I have no doubt that this appeal was also written in the US Department of State. In other words, they are writing letters to themselves to threaten us, to accuse us. After all, what have we done? We have liberated our native lands. Is there an Armenian living here? No, you, the residents of Jabrayil are. In other places, they have left all the villages of Azerbaijan in such a state today as well. They have destroyed our mosques and turned them into animal stalls, keeping cows and pigs. Has anyone in the West said that Azerbaijan's cultural heritage is being looted, destroyed, and desecrated? No. But what are we accused of? Allegedly, we are destroying some historical heritage. It is completely baseless. America imposed sanctions against us in 1992, when we were losing our lands. Then the sanctions were lifted in 2001. Why? Because their aggressive activities in Afghanistan had begun. A war of occupation had started, and they needed us. As long as they remained in Afghanistan, these sanctions were waived annually by the US President. When they fled Afghanistan, right in front of the eyes of the entire world, these sanctions were reimposed against us. Is there a degree of ingratitude in this, or not? I mean, when you need us, you waive these sanctions. When you no longer need us, you reimpose them again. Why? For this reason, for this building. Because of residential areas like this, that we have built and restored in all the regions for our former IDPs. Look, their eyes cannot endure this. They cannot accept this day. Today is a day of mourning, a day of grief for the anti-Azerbaijani forces. How is it possible that Azerbaijan restored its rights without any permission, without asking anyone, without fearing anyone? without considering anyone by its own strength, thanks to the sacrifices of its children. They cannot forgive us for this. And today sanctions are imposed on Azerbaijan from America. After that, they say, let's strengthen our friendship. What kind of friendship can be discussed? Our friend is the one who rejoices today. I said this a few days ago. Those who are disappointed with this day and do not accept it can never be our friends. This is what the Azerbaijani people should know. It must be said openly. Let diplomats speak in diplomatic language. I have always told the truth to the Azerbaijani people. At all times, and today, the truth is still this. But we must rely on our strength and not be deceived by any promises, sweet words, or deceitful expressions. I especially mean the younger generation. Because today, the main target of anti-Azerbaijan forces is the consciousness of the younger generations. They are trying to influence it. That's why they fabricate and disseminate outrageous lies against Azerbaijan through their media and so-called non-governmental organizations. Various elements with anti-Azerbaijan stances are still being funded in Azerbaijan under different NGOs and public organizations. If they manage to influence the youth's consciousness, they will essentially affect Azerbaijan's future, and the youth should never forget this. These ruins will eventually be dismantled, and new buildings will be erected in their place. However, this scene must never leave our minds. Certainly, Armenia is the main culprit, but those who stand behind them, both then and now, also share the blame. What other Western countries that are arming Armenia today are thinking? Do they think we will turn a blind eye or wait for these buildings to end up in a similar state? No, we will not wait. No one can deter us. We must and will ensure our future development and safe life. I also warn Armenia here, among the ruins. Stop these dangerous games. On one hand, they talk about peace and spread lies. On the other hand, large-scale armament is ongoing. Who supplies them with weapons? Countries like France and other anti-Azerbaijan states. Why are these weapons provided to them for free? As I said, it's to bring our towns and villages back to this state. No matter how hard they try, they will achieve nothing. Today, they should leave the South Caucasus in peace and focus on their own issues, deal with their own problems, cleanse their bloody past, and try to atone for their sins. They should restore the independence of the hundreds of thousands of people they have tormented, end their colonial policies, refrain from oppressing nations, and stop sticking their noses everywhere. This is my warning, and I think that those who hear and act on it will not make a mistake. Armenia has engaged in dangerous games, and they should not forget the history of the Second Karabakh War. They should not forget how they begged us for help on their knees and how they appealed to Russia at the highest levels, perhaps 10 times a day, to stop the war. That has slipped from their memory, and now they have found new patrons. They walk on their knees in front of their patrons. Let them not forget the anti-terror operation. They should remember that we achieved what we wanted in that geography. Without regard for anyone or anything, we eradicated the roots of separatism in just a few hours. If it took us a week to liberate Jabrayil, the city, and 44 days to free Karabakh, we liberated those regions which were nests of separatists in just a few hours. No one should joke with us or play with our patience. I could say these words anywhere because I always tell the truth to the Azerbaijani people and share my thoughts. The situation in the world is changing. Of course, our attitude towards events should be adequate. However, I thought that I should say these words amidst the ruins and these beautiful buildings, so that both the Azerbaijani people and our friends hear them, rejoice in our victory once again, and our enemies hear them and draw the right conclusions. Today, we live on the liberated lands. The Azerbaijani flag waves proudly in all liberated areas, including Konkendi and Kocaeli. Azerbaijani citizens are now residing in Shusha, Lachin, Fuzuli, Konkendi, Kocaeli, and Jabrayil, these cities and several villages. The restoration of nearly 100 villages is ongoing, and we are successfully implementing the Great Return Program. I wish you a happy life here. You deserve it. You have lived for many years in tents and refugee camps. We have tried, as much as possible, to make your lives a little easier. Over 100 people have already settled here. They are those who came today and yesterday. Some of them have lived in the refugee camp in Bilaşova. There may be those who remember my visit to that camp. I first visited there 20 years ago. We tried to build new apartments and houses, providing nearly 300,000 former displaced persons, perhaps many more with normal living conditions, by 2020. However, even more people lived in difficult circumstances. Therefore, it is your right to live in these beautiful buildings. You deserve it. I am confident that your children and grandchildren, who have never seen this land, as well as those who have lived on this land and were expelled from here, will live here comfortably and happily, always proud of their state and their people. I congratulate you once again.
Birazdan sonra sizi bayram konserti de gözləyir. İnşallah bundan sonra bu torpaqlarda ancaq bayramları qeyd edək. Bir daha təbrik edirəm.